There's a ton of noise out there. So how do you get decision makers to pay attention to your brand? Start a podcast and invite your ideal clients to be guests on your show. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show. Welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. We are here today with Barney Waters. He is the president of K-Swiss, and I am extremely excited about this interview. Barney, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So Barney, I saw you speak at Hypergrowth probably a couple months ago now in Boston, and you talked about a few different things from stage, and I thought your entire talk was incredible. But the thing that I think our audience is going to get an enormous amount of value from is specifically the part of your talk where you talked about the repositioning of K-Swiss's brand. I've been hearing a lot of, even in B2B circles, a lot of people talking about the importance of kind of niching down, of positioning correctly, kind of getting out of crowded waters, going to more open waters. And I think you guys navigated that shift from what it seems like in a brilliant way. And so I'd love to dive in, Barney, and just ask you about that. So could you kind of tell us the story of how K-Swiss's brand repositioned and kind of what it repositioned from, what you guys positioned to, and just tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, I mean, I took over a couple of years ago now, and I think I realized right away that K-Swiss as a brand needed to find a lane that was ownable and differentiated. I think that's the key of any brand, has to sort of find, what they're the only one at to have an open lane. And K-Swiss had done a lot of things, and I use this phrase, if you try and stand for everything, you end up standing for nothing. And I think K-Swiss has fallen into that a little bit. And it's sneakers is a Coke and Pepsi market, with Nike and Adidas. You got these two big sneaker companies that take, the lion's share of the market. So, the one thing you can't do as a small challenger brand is make cola in that instance. So we had to stand for something different. And when you look at the market, Nike really owns the concept of the athlete. If you want to run fast, jump high, sweat, be the winner, that's a Nike position. And then Adidas sort of tacked and took this idea of celebrity and the cool guy with Kanye and Pharrell, and they did a nice job in sort of owning that lifestyle fashion angle. So in both those instances, I just felt K-Swiss couldn't win if we tried to be the 10th athlete brand or the 10th celebrity brand. And at the same time, there was this emergence in youth culture around the aspiration of what young people are trying to be is shifting from playing for the Yankees or being a celebrity to being the boss, being a CEO, having their own brand. They want to be Mark Zuckerberg or Evan Spiegel or Elon Musk or Emily Weiss of Glossier, and so we tacked onto this idea of entrepreneurship and young entrepreneur as our muse, and we call it Sneakers for CEOs. And that's really a differentiated lane that no one was touching with sneakers, and it really opened up a lot for us and allowed us to be heard with this unique voice.
I love what you just spoke to there, Barney, about you guys having your finger on the pulse of culture and understanding that this is something you mentioned in your talk in Boston as well. You said kids aren't aspiring to be athletes past the age of, 10, 11, 12 anymore. They're aspiring to be CEOs. They want to be their own boss. And for you guys to have your finger on the pulse of culture like that, to understand that so that you can make that shift, I think is really telling. Particularly, I mean, you guys aren't a young company. You've been around for, what is
That's
it,
right.
50 years?
That's right. Yeah, 50 years. Yeah, I mean, I challenge my team. I call ourselves a 50-year-old startup because we're sort of starting over. And, one of the challenges I have for my team is, can we outperform or be more progressive than the startups, the direct-to-consumer startups now? And so we're doing things like we're podcast. We turned one of our offices into a podcast studio. We now have a podcast where we interview young entrepreneurs. We hired a full-time videographer. We make a show now called Inside K-Swiss. It's on YouTube or on our Facebook page, where we show inside our company and who we are and what we do every week. So we're trying to be more, can a 50-year-old brand still be more progressive than somebody who started last year? And you can. You just have to kind of commit to it and understand the importance of it.
I love that you guys are, from my perspective, seem to be leading the way in this, because as a 50-year-old company, you obviously have things that direct to consumer brand that started last year on an Instagram account doesn't have. I mean, you guys have the resources, you guys have the team, you guys have the experience in the industry. And so I think as that translates to a B2B context, there are so many B2B companies out there that I think are in a similar boat where they've been around for decades and they are just failing to look forward and say, man, how are we going to compete with these younger companies that can pivot and move, at a really fast clip? And so you guys are doing that. You're adapting to kind of the modern media landscape with having a podcast, with getting on YouTube and publishing content regularly there that's compelling, not just like boring talking head videos, but you've created like some creative there that is really compelling. One thing I wanted to talk to you about as it relates to this repositioning, a big part of that, from the outside looking in, was a particular partnership with GaryVee that you guys collaborated with him, and you're doing multiple shoe collaborations with him. That's honestly how K-Swiss got on my radar, because I'm a big GaryVee fan. Can you talk about kind of what was the thinking there? Was it, okay, we know we need to make the shift to entrepreneurship. Who is kind of the face of that right now, or did it come about differently?
Yeah, exactly. Once we'd honed in on this idea of entrepreneurs are the new heroes of youth culture, and that being an open lane for us, we are in a world where influencers are really important, and and social media voice. You have to have a channel to the audience, and all roads pointed to GaryVee. He was the guy who was living this life, who was, I call him like the godfather of the young entrepreneur movement, and he was the guy talking about it, and he had the voice on social media, and it was much smaller going back a couple of years now than he is now. He's grown probably 5 times the audience when I first reached out to him, but he was our Jordan. But I just felt like, wow, he's not your typical sneaker face, and so there was a lot of risk associated with it, but I never couldn't think of anybody else. It was him, and it worked out great. I think the surprise factor and the fact that it was different inspired people, and his influence is undeniable. So, and we made sneakers. It was a bit tongue in cheek. Hey, can we make the first signature sneaker for an entrepreneur versus an athlete? As a perfect juxtaposition to the big incumbent in our industry, which is Nike, and we did that. And we sold 5,000 pairs in the first day.
Wow!
And we knew we had something.
I love it. When I first saw that, because K-Swiss honestly hadn't been on my radar for a while. I mean, they were when I was younger, and they had kind of fallen off my radar. And as soon as I saw GaryVee announced that, I thought, what a brilliant move from K-Swiss, on K-Swiss's part, and really GaryVee's. I think it was super smart for both of you guys to embark on that. How is the repositioning, finding that swim lane, going all in on it? How has that impacted things like product design and messaging?
Well, it's definitely affected messaging. And if you follow K-Swiss, you can see it's affected our messaging. I would say product design has taken a while to catch up, in that, we have to be really, to make this real, you have to be now really understanding the needs of that consumer target and building products specifically for the young entrepreneur. And I think you've probably seen us using an entrepreneurial message, but with the same shoes. And so the shoes, to some degree, got to catch up to the brand message. And I think we're probably in a transitional period right now. The truth is, a young entrepreneur is the same consumer target that everybody other sneaker brand is talking to. It's the same kid that's going into Foot Locker to buy sneakers. It's just a question of whether they are they really thinking, how do I run, take a minute off my mile pace, or are they walking in thinking, how do I build my business to make myself rich and successful? And we're gambling on the fact that they're thinking the second way. But they're the same cool kid wearing the similar things as other brands are talking to about athletics.
So I was saying, because I bought a pair of, I think it was the GaryVee 003s, and it's the green and the black shoes. And I've worn those in business settings. I wear those to conferences. I wear those, and I think that is very telling, because I wouldn't necessarily wear a pair of Nikes, a pair of athletic shoes in that setting. But I felt, and I know you said that, the product design is lagging behind a little bit behind the messaging, but I actually feel like the design of at least GaryVee's shoes are very much so catered to the professional that is a little bit more casual. It's not, a full on dress shoe, but it also doesn't look like a sneaker, or it doesn't look like a basketball shoe.
Air of sophistication to it and some function. So, we know that entrepreneurs, travel more than the average person. They over-index in things like travel. We know that a young entrepreneur will go to the office or to WeWork, and then they'll go straight out to meet a client for drinks. And so they've got to go from, different wear occasions, and they'll wake up in the morning and look at the calendar. What do I have on the docket today? And then dress accordingly. So, we want a shoe that can operate in all those environments. And that's what we're working on from a product design standpoint. So the muse and the target consumer should inform everything you do if you're doing it right.
It's story time again, and we're talking about search engine marketing. Today, I'm going to tell you about a challenge within Pelican Case's B2B division. Pelican needed a partner with deep B2B expertise that could get them a massive bump in leads from their pay-per-click campaigns without increasing spend. After vetting a handful of agencies, they decided to go with Directive Consulting, a B2B search marketing agency located in Southern California. Directive took on this challenge by refining their targeting and building custom landing pages for their advertising efforts. Once implemented, they saw a 208% increase in conversion rate. Needless to say, Pelican Cases met their initiative. And I have a hunch that Directive can get these kind of results for you too. So head over to directiveconsulting.com and request a totally free custom proposal. That's directiveconsulting.com. All right, let's get back to this interview.
Yep, I totally agree. I've noticed just in your messaging, even in the Facebook ads that I see pulling up in my feed from you guys, that it's very much catered to someone like me, an entrepreneur. And I noticed that in the product design as well. So I assumed it was a very intentional, obviously an intentional move on your part, but wanted to kind of hear you speak about that. So I appreciate you going there with me. The next thing that I'd like to talk about, Barney, is kind of the financial impact. I don't know how much you're able to say specifically, but has it been a financial win for you guys post kind of this pretty significant repositioning?
Yeah, I mean, certainly our results are a lot better now than they were. I think it was a win in terms of just GaryVee sneakers. So them on their own did really well, but it's lifted the whole brand. And at the same time, though, we're sort of riding some trend waves in terms of 90s fashion is really strong right now. Authentic sort of retro brands are popping up again, and we're obviously one of those. So we have that effect as well. But overall, yeah, we're experiencing a double-digit growth and
incredible,
and higher in the US market specifically. We're doing really well, but a long way to go. It's not, you don't turn these things around in a year or two. It's a marathon, not a sprint. But the early results are excellent. We're very happy.
I love it, Barney. My last question for you today is something that I think a lot of the B2B folks listening to this are going to get a lot of value from. I'd love to hear from your perspective, what was the most challenging aspect of repositioning a really well-established brand, and then what did you and your team do to overcome that challenge or those series of challenges?
Well, I think, one of the hard things is it's really hard to turn a consumer's perception of where they put you in a box, and it's hard to get into a different box. So that I've learned. And the other big challenge is internally, when you take risk and go out on a limb, well, as a challenger brand, I think it's more risk to follow everyone else's formula than it is to actually to actually go out on a limb. But when you do that, you have to convince your own people that it's the right thing to do. And I think it took a long time to even get my own internal team to really see it and believe it. And what I learned is that you need something tangible to show people. So in other words, me saying, hey, this is the future and this is what we should do is, talk is cheap. And I was saying it and presenting and speaking and everyone's nodding and, but underneath they don't really fully commit. But the first time we did a meet and greet with GaryVee and, hundreds of people showed up and were waiting in line, the very next day, the next morning, people came to work differently because now they'd seen it with their own eyes. So I would say, if you have a new positioning or you have a big idea and you're trying to convince your own team, is do something tangible early to get them to see it, to follow you. Talk is cheap. That would be my advice. And that's what I learned. I did it the wrong way. Next time I'll do it. I'll do something more tangible much earlier.
And was there, Barney, were there any changes that you had to make in terms of the talent on your team for folks that just kind of weren't buying in, or did it not have to get that far?
Yeah, I think you have to. And that's the bottom line is, you have to have believers. And some people will get on the bus and some people won't. And the ones you have to really worry about are the ones who say they're on, but underneath they're really not, and that happens a lot. So I think that's the absolute key is, if you're going to, to turn a brand around, either to turn an old brand around or to build a new one is blood, sweat, and tears. It's really difficult. So you can't have any baggage. They're either on or off, but there's no in between. You have to find believers. That's critical. I take those over talent any day. And ideally, you want to find someone with both.
Absolutely. Barney, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate your time and talking through this. I think this is going to be really, really valuable, even for people in a totally different context than folks in a B2B context. I think there's a lot of talk around repositioning, and I just love your story and the way you've shared it and articulated it on stage and this interview now. So if there's somebody listening to this, Barney, they want to stay connected with you or the brand itself. Obviously, you can go to kswiss.com, but how can they follow you on social and
K-Swiss, obviously at K-Swiss and all the usual places, and myself, I'm at Barney Waters on Instagram or on LinkedIn. Those are the two places I look the most, and you can follow our story. And like I said, we've made progress, but we have a long way to go still. So it's a live case study.
I love it. Yeah. Barney, again, thank you so much for your time. This has been fantastic. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Digital marketing agencies have a tough job. You have to stay on top of the latest marketing strategies for your clients and your agency. What if there was a way you could address both at the same time? Imagine your agency putting out content with greater quality and quantity. Envision bringing your clients a turnkey solution for one of B2B marketing's fastest growing media strategies, podcasting. All those clients asking for your help with their account-based marketing efforts? Picture being the first to bring them the idea of content-based networking, showing them the proven strategy for breaking into their most coveted accounts. Here's the concept. Sweetfish Media is looking to work with a limited number of innovative agencies interested in a new partnership model. We produce a podcast for your agency. You introduce the power of podcasting and Sweetfish services to your clients. Everybody wins. Learn more at sweetfishpartners.com.